Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night, good wherever you are. I hope it's been a good one for you. Welcome. This is the first one for a couple of weeks, and I've missed it. And I think I'm going to get back to the regular side of doing lives. I will just set forward something right now. I've had some feedback from some people that the video is a bit ordinary, and all I can say to that is fucking internet in Australia. Like, man, it's the worst I've ever known. Because I've traveled the world extensively. Like, I've been to Tasmania and I've been to Rottnest Island, and that's overseas. You know, it's like a huge place to go. But in saying that, I am just behind the movie world here on the Gold Coast, and it may be that there's so many people hammering the bandwidth in movie world because of our hundreds of millions of tourists that come here now, that it's chocking up the internet and therefore getting bad video. So I don't know if there's any way around that other than I do a pre-recording and then just post it. And if there's some way I can do that, that would be great. However, I like the live stuff because I can make mistakes and I don't have to edit it. Anyway, that being said, just a reminder, like I say at the beginning of every one of these videos, now's the time to move on if there's any chance you're going to be offended. And there may be a chance of that today, and I apologize ahead if I say things that attacking people and their beliefs and those sorts of things. It's not my intent to do that. I'm just expressing my views. Again, if you want to move on, now's the time to do it. If you're going to stay, do the thumbs thing now, tick it now, and if you don't like it later, take it off. It helps the process. Big thumbs up, that'd be awesome. So in saying that, I'm going to revisit The Voice again, just like hopefully for the last time, because this stupid referendum is going to be over on the 14th of October. But I just want one more thing to say. I've had some things come through feeds that I just want to raise with you lot. Okay, so first thing I want to do today is talk about a little history of the Volkswagen Beetle. Now, it's only going to be really little because it's going to blend into the next part about the 10 Commandments and all. But if you all know your history, and I think some people who will know, Daff, you'll probably know more than I will about this history. But in the mid to late 30s in Germany, a prototype of the Beetle was first introduced, right? And that was, I think, without saying the word, little Hitler, he said, this is the prototype. It's called whatever it's called. I can't remember, KPF wagon or something. And he released that in 1938 as a prototype, which is a really cool idea. It looked like the Beetle, looked fantastic. I think it was about the mid 40s it came off the production line for the first time, right? So let's see, there's a timeline of around about 7 or 8 years when it wasn't really made in production, but it was available. People could see it as a prototype. And in 1945, the Beetle was introduced. Now, where I'm leading with this, in 1945, the 1700 or 1800 Beetles that were introduced would have come with a training manual, like not a training manual, a driver's manual on what to do and how to wind the window down and how to tune it and all that sort of stuff so that people could do things with it. Now, we know that you can get manuals for every release of every motor car that's probably been made in the world, right? So as the Beetle progressed through its transitions, they had better technology, they had wider wheels maybe, they changed it from a 6-volt to a 12-volt motor, therefore a new manual. And then it's all the way up to the models up now when they stopped making it for a period of time. Then they brought the new one back, the concept Beetle, which was just sexy as. And then they've lowered the roof and raised the doors. It just looks super, super hot. And that now comes with a manual as well, like an operator's manual or a driver's manual for the 2023 Beetle. Now, even though there's similarities in the looks, there's similarities in the design and the fact that they've all got 4 wheels, 5 if you include the steering wheel, 6 if you put the spare into it. They've got a rear-mounted engine. The windows aren't the same anymore. They go up, they go down. Thanks, Staff. It is a KDF wagon. So I guess when you're looking at the idea of this manual's changing and evolving over time. So you buy a 1923 or 2023 Volkswagen Beetle, and you can't use the manual that was released with the 1945 Beetle, because even though they're like a lot the same, like they're nowhere near the same in technology and evolution and process and change. So step that now into the idea of the New and Old Testament of the Bible. Now, this is where I'm going to tread on some toes, and please, I don't mean to, or maybe I do, I'm not so sure. But there's just views and opinions over years of discussions with people who come and knock on your door, right? So for me, the And I'm going to read this out to you because, like, I don't remember the 10 Commandments. I remember most of them, but I don't remember them all. And what I'm going to read out is they call it a short form of it, because the biblical form of the 10 Commandments are thou shalt not, and there's an extended part of God smiting you and knocking you down. Now, I believe that's out of the Old Testament, Corinthians, I think, and there's another part in there that is also listed again, but it's all Old Testament. And for those who know, and I don't know enough about it, so those of you who do know, please let me know. The Old Testament was fire and brimstone. God was vengeful and hurtful and hateful and would smack you down through fear. And then the New Testament Bible came out around, I think, the time of Jesus, and he became more gentle and soft, and God became less vindictive maybe, or hurtful. He became a little bit more like, yeah, no, I'm cool. No, you're fine. You do what you need to do. But if you don't follow this rule, you can't come to heaven, right? Because then if you still a lot of judgment in there. So the 10 Commandments are there, and we're trying to live by a set of rules. Let's read them out in the short form. First one is, you shall have no other God before me. Number 2, you shall not make false idols. Now, of course, this, again, please, it's a short form. The third one, you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Fourth is, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. The fifth, honor your father and your mother. Number 6, this is Auslan, by the way, 6, you shall not murder. Number 7, you shall not commit adultery. Number 8, you shall not steal. Number 9, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. And number 10, you shall not covet. Now, what they mean is like, and that's wishing for other things, but what they mean generally is that these are 10 basic rules that you need to abide by so that you can live a life. Now, from my understanding of the history of the Bible, Moses parted the Red Sea, took the people from Egypt out to the Promised Land, wandered the world for 40 years to find the Promised Land. At a time in that 40 years, whether it was at the 40-year time or somewhere earlier in that, people were just going rampant. They were going back to the old ways of Egypt with multiple gods and, bull horns and, worshipping everything. Moses was like pulling his hair out. He went up to the top of a mountain for 40 nights and had the burning bush, came back with 10 commandments and said, guys, God has told me to do this. Now, skeptical, cynical, maybe not so sure, but he went up there for 40 nights and no one was with him. He carved out 10 commandments that he knew was going to help these people, and came back and said, God gave me this. Because, like, no one was there to prove it or not. I like to think that it was given down by a God-created, inspired vision. He still chiseled it out and brought them down and said, follow these commandments. So, like the beetle story, that was then. We've evolved now to a different style. We are visually looking similar. I think now, like the Beatles transition, it's got the same curves and the same wheels and things, but we don't really look the same. I believe we're a little bit taller and we're living longer and we're healthier. So everything's evolved in that time, from this time of the commandments up to today, 23rd century. So I played around with it a little bit and I put my spin to what this might mean. So I'll go through this with you, and thanks for bearing with me and having this little chat. Number 1, you shall have no other gods before me. I've turned that a little bit, and I've said, put yourself, your family, and your genuine friends before the unimportant things like material possessions or status. So in my mindset, you worship yourself, your family, and your genuine friends. Now, genuine friends is a loose term, because you can trust a person, they can be a trusted friend, but that doesn't mean they're a genuine friend. Like a genuine friend you would die for, you would do anything for. A trusted friend means you trust them with a certain amount of things, but you may not sacrifice yourself and their things for. Those 3 things are the Trinity, the triangle of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. So the Father being yourself, the Son being your family, which is the next things outside of you, and then the next part of that ring of the circle are your genuine friends. So that Trinity makes you as a whole one being. So for me, put yourself, your family, your genuine friends before anything immaterial and irrelevant, like material things and status. So, number 2, you shall not make false idols. So I see in that just refer to the first commandment, right? Remember the important things and avoid placing value on things like money, celebrity, labels, and material objects. So today the world is smitten, if you like, for want of another word, on labels and brands. So I know there's a culture out there where the mighty tick, the Nike tick, whatever it is, they worship. People buy $7,000 shoes and $400 hats, and that to me is what I think that second commandment represents. So not make a false idol, and that to me is really real. So if you if you don't worship yourself and your family and your friends, your genuine friends, above these things, then I think there's something amiss there. So number 3, you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Now, in the day, there was multiple gods, and they tried to bring it back to the one God, and then that would be worship and look after this one God. Today, we've gone so many cultures. There weren't that many cultures in those days. There's now multiple cultures and multiple, therefore, gods in the world. And what people don't realize, in my mind, is there's only one unifying entity, and that's the tree of life. And that goes into Mother Nature and reaches up to Father Sky, for want of gendering them too, or the binary of the two. And every branch that comes off are a different god or a different religion. It's irrelevant what you call it. It is just so irrelevant. So I've changed number 3 to mention your God's name as often as you can each day. Whether you use it carelessly or to justify wrongdoing, every utterance of your God gives more energy to your God. So, Hotfrodoma, which could mean, Gaff, you tell me what it means. Someone told me it was God damn it. Someone says God be damned. Like, I really don't care. You're mentioning your God. You could say Allah, Buddha, Krishna, Vishnu, whoever you want to say, and you're just mentioning and empowering that God to whatever it might be. I don't believe God has that judgment to say whether it's in vain or not. I think man does, and I think we need to let that go. Anyway, number 4, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Rewording number 4 to work hard and remember to give yourself time to enjoy your family and friends at least one day each week. So what day that is, don't care. Really don't care. Thanks, Steph. God damn me. To take it literally. Maybe it is. I think the false idol commandment is direct reference to Satan. Maybe. I think maybe, Bonda, that could be right. However, Satan is just the binary of God, right? You can't. Anything that's not God is then satanic. I don't know if that's necessarily true or not, but thank you for the comment. Anyway, so remember to work hard and remember to have leisure time. And it doesn't matter the Sabbath day, because sometimes you just got to fucking work on that day and you can't do anything about it. And you shouldn't be punished for doing that. But take the next day to rest. Okay, number 5, honor your father and your mother. All right, so for my mind, you only ever have one mother and one father, and that's just undeniable. One seed impregnates one egg, grows one child. Now, that doesn't mean that mother and father are honorable people and that you should honor them. You need to understand that they are your mother and your father. In the day, there was no separation. They stayed together. They worked their ass together. There's no affairs. There's none of the shit that's happening in today's world. So in my mind is number 5, if they are kind and honorable, then honor them. If they're not, you also need to honor those who have taken care of you throughout your life. So you might have a mother and a father who passed away, and you respect that father who being your father. You can't really honor him because there's nothing to honor, but you can. But your mother has married someone else, and that person's cared and loved and provided for you all of your life. You need to take that honor to that person as well. If the same is in the opposite, if your mother is no longer part of your life and she's a skanky hoe, don't honor her, but your stepmother has been fantastic to you and you need to honor her. So it's not just your mother and father, it's all those who have cared and provided for you. So that needs to be maybe uplifted a little bit in that mindset for me. Now, of course, you can take a literal side of that, and that's absolutely fine as well. I don't have a problem with that. So number 6 is you shall not murder. Well, that's just a fucking given, mate. Like you need to protect your family. However, the term murder is loose, I think, and that I think the word isn't murder. I think that's the loose. I think in the Bible it says thou shalt not kill, and this loose term is now brought to a little bit lighter to say thou shalt not murder, but in the original is thou shalt not kill. And I don't know that you can actually do that, because there's sometimes a justification for it. In war, to protect your family and your loved ones and your genuine friends and yourself, you may have to do that. So when you say murder, don't kill unnecessarily or harm someone unnecessarily. And I think that's a more modern way of looking at that term, thou shalt not kill, because, I tell you right now, if someone hurts my daughter or my wife, and I'm not going to have any remorse getting something back on them, because the law system doesn't support that. And if that person's a 10-year-old, not a 10-year-old, that's just stupid. You slap a 10-year-old's ass, put him back to bed. If it's a 15, 16-year-old, they know what they're doing, and they need punishment to justify that. So that would be a hurt necessarily. That's me. All right. You shall not commit adultery. Clearly, stay loyal to your partner and be honest in your relationship. Because if you're honest in your relationship, there'll be no need for adultery. If your partner needs something from you and you're not prepared to provide it, fucking grow up and change your mindset. If you want that person to be part of you and they want head, give them head. Like, it's not fucking rocket science. If your partner wants you to clean the bathroom, clean the fucking bathroom. Don't be stupid. Don't be so stupid not to do that. If your partner needs you to help whippersnip the lawn, go out and whippersnip the lawn with them. It's like, this is a relationship. This is being honest. Each one works with a certain degree of respect. And if that happens, there's no room for adultery. And if you do, all done to you. You shall not steal, or do not steal. Yeah, that makes sense. Don't steal or take what doesn't belong to you. There's nothing more you can say to that, other than to use that going back to what will be the last commandment. I saw number 10 is, if you have ever had anything stolen from you and how that makes you feel, how can you then in turn do that to someone else? I've had my car stolen, and it was, that'll lead into the next one. That's all funny how things lead into today. And it was stolen by a group of people who, they not only did they steal everything out of it and slash the seats and dent every guard and do the burnouts and that sort of stuff, they shit on my back seat. I felt violated. It was the worst feeling ever. And these people got off scot-free, and I'll explain that later. Now, if you've had that happen to you, there's no way in my mind, unless you're a psychopath or a sociopath, that you can even possibly think of inflicting that same feeling on someone else. So that shalt not steal is just like, man, that's a no-brainer. You just don't do that crap. Anyway, thou shalt not be a false witness against your neighbor. Yeah, don't lie. Really, tell the truth as you perceive it, and that is the truth. I don't know. This is a fine one, because the truth is, there is objective truth and there's subjective truth. I will tell you that today is 20 degrees outside in the ambient temperature, and it feels really, really good. The objective truth in that is that it's 20 degrees. Now, I know someone who'll come down from Darwin and have a jumper on today and say, Jesus, bloody cold. So that's their truth, right? So they can honestly say that as their truth, because it is subjective. I just say, well, it's just 20 degrees. And they go, well, it's still fucking cold. I go, yeah, but it's still just 20 degrees. And the same goes to the other side. Someone comes from a place that's, -5 degrees, and they're walking around with their shirt off saying, Jesus, this is bloody hot. And I can say objectively, well, it's 20 degrees. So all of us in that example are telling the truth as I objectively see it, and as I subjectively see it, and as they subjectively feel the truth of that. So that's tactile feeling. So I guess, but in that, when you say your truth, don't say it to manipulate the situation to suit your need. I think that's a better way of looking at that. So I might say the truth and only part thereof in a manipulation of that to get what I want from another person in that dynamic. So to coin Dr. Jordan Peterson, in one of his, out of his first book, one of the chapters was tell the truth, or at least don't lie. And I think that's probably more valid in this dynamic, because you can tell part truth and that's not a lie. And I think that's pretty cool. Anyway, the last one, thou shalt not covet. And I guess that means, and when you look at it all out there, is don't wish you had what your neighbour had, like his donkey or his mule or his cart or whatever it might be, or particularly his wife. because that always leads to greed and envy, right? So be content with what you have, as the longing for what belongs to someone else can bring despair. And I think that's pretty real. If you truly want something, work hard and it can be yours, right? So, and you find as you're working hard in that process, you might decide that what that is isn't really relevant to you anymore. But you can sit down on your chair, it's got a bit of a tear on it, and look at your neighbour and say, I like his chair, it's better than mine. But you're not content with what you've got, and then you don't feel it, and then you start feeling bad about the stuff you don't have. And that despair brings you down to a mindset where you don't feel motivated to do something because you feel despair. And then you won't work hard, and then you won't achieve it. So just don't look. Just look at it and go, oh, he's got a nice chair. I got a comfortable chair. I'm happy here, or I'm content having what I've got. So in the revision of those 10 commandments, I think we need to have a set of rules to live by. And I'm going to give you at the very end of today's live what I live by in my set of rules. And they're only simple. It's not 10 because I can't remember the 10, but I can remember these 5. So just to move on to that, there was a phrase and a thing that was heading out there in the world in the 70s, 80s maybe. I remember it. I think it was the 70s. My mum had it plastered on our toilet door, and it was a poem that was originally thought to come from the 1600s. And I believe it was found out that it was written by a lawyer and a poet in 1927 by the name of Max Herman. Anyway, you look at it, you find it out. The poem was called Desiderata, and I was going to play you a snippet of the song, but I put it in the link in the description in below. I remember this song. It was like so much playing through my youth. And I'd like to think most people know this poem. So I'm going to bore you with it because, no, it shouldn't. Look, I might bore you with some of it, but I'm going to read it out, and fast forward if you don't want to hear this. I'll do this at the end of the reading, so you'll know to go, I'll stop there. But again, this poem was written in 1927 by a poet and a lawyer, and it's called Desiderata, and it goes like, go placidly amid the noise and haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth clearly and quietly, and listen to others, even the dull and ignorant. They too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexations to the spirit. If you compare yourself to others, you may become vain and bitter, for always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career, however humble. It is a real possession in these changing fortunes and time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let this not blind you to what virtues there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. Be yourself, especially don't feign affection. Neither be cynical about love, for in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, it is perennial as the grass. Take kindly the counsel of the years. Gracefully surrender the things of youth. Nurture strength and spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune. Do not distress yourself with dark imaging. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, undoubtedly the universe is folding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive him to be, and whatever your labours and aspirations in the noise and confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. It hurts me. That's pretty cool. Be cheerful. Strive to be happy. Like far out, man. Peace, that's over. I didn't think it was going to do that, but that's gold. And every time I read that, it's going to affect me. It is a beautiful place, and we've just got to fucking grow up and fucking. I always want to end it with that, but it's going to lead into this next thing. And this is whew, it's almost a complete opposite of that, unfortunately. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so I'm going to shake myself because this next section is all right. Here we go. The voice again. Finally, I think this is it for me. I'm done with it. However, I think this needs to be said from my point of view, and I need to say it to you, the four of you who are experiencing this with me, or not. The last 3 or 4 years have been a test for the world, and in my view, we failed. I think someone somewhere has set forward a few things in motion that have tried to determine just how far they can push mankind to do things that they know are wrong and they know are stupid and false, to the point of them doing it regardless. And you know what I'm talking about. I don't need to mention it. It's just a fucking sham. And so many people did so many things that they know to be wrong. And those people today, some of them are opening their eyes and some of them are seeing what they've done, and they're now regretting their decisions and seeing what's happened and the effects of it. But some of them are they've dug their heels in. They've set themselves so into this process. No, it was right. No, it was the best thing to do, when they know it wasn't. And this is going back to one of those commandments about tell the truth, tell the bloody truth, and don't manipulate it to serve people. And these people know the truth. So going back to that one about honor yourself, they're not even doing that. They're just throwing this bullshit right out there. I believe that Australia is a testing ground for the next phase of separation, and you can't tell me that the last 3 to 4 years hasn't created a separation, and it did. In that timeline, it was us and them, and it's now happening again. And I don't know, I know like India seceded and all that sorts of things, but from the colony, but I actually feel, and someone in the comments in lives or in the comments below after this saying it, I think Australia was the last British colony before everything started to pull away from that. Now, Australia is, I think we were colonised recognised anyway in 1770, so we're 250 odd years old, maybe 260 years old. So we're pretty young, pretty juvenile. And as a nation, we are still very young and juvenile. So I believe that the powers that be, and maybe conspiracy or not, but they're testing Australia to see just how far we can go with this. And as you'd give a requirement and a rule out to a child, they're doing the same for our young nation, and we're easily manipulated. So I think this voice referendum is no different to that. I think it's creating a separation inside of our society at the moment, where I'm just going through some of my notes here. I actually believe it's a manipulation to divide the country. So what is a nation, I guess? So the big referendum is talking about the First Nations people. So given that I don't understand what nations are, I had to ask a question. So if I ask a question, and the question is, what is a nation? And I did this on Google, and the nation is a large body of people united by common descent, history, culture, and language. Whatever, inhabiting a particular country or territory. So I go, well, that makes sense. So a large nation, like a word here, large nation of people. So you would say America, a large nation of people, and Brazil's a large nation of people with common heritage and history and culture. And then we go with the voice in the referendum talking about the First Nations people. And I'm potentially a little confused about the First Nations people, because I'll just bring this up, see if I can find it. Maybe it's here. So the First Nations people are talking about. There we go. I've got this here, and I'll share that so you can have a little look at that. And the First Nations people they are not one group, but rather comprising hundreds of groups that have their own distinct set of languages, histories, and cultural traditions. So I'm trying to find where that relates to First Nations people. Are they so? And what constitutes a large group of people? So this is my confusion again, my ignorance, because I'm one of those people, a little bit ignorant in this process. Large doesn't constitute one tribe moving from one part of the country or one part of the world to another. That's a tribe of people, not a nation of people. So you can't have one nations or First Nations. You can have lots of tribes. I go with that. Not a problem with that. I'm happy to say that the Aboriginal people were the first humans to be in this land. And when they came down before the Ice Age melted and they moved, and then the Ice Age melted and separated them from the rest of the evolving cultures 30,000 years ago. Some people say 60,000 years ago. Don't have a problem with that. 30,000 years ago, they did what they did for 30,000 years and walked the land and did what they did. I'm not so sure that there's any evidence that there's a group of Aboriginals coming together every year in one location and having one big celebration of all of the cultures of Aboriginals in this one little land. If that was true, that would be fantastic, and let's give them that back as their sacred land. But I don't think taking it or having a shit beside a tree up in Arnhem Land constitutes sacred land. And I don't know about the culture, and I know modern history will write the culture in a way that suits them now, but I'm not so sure that someone dying of old age along the land and just left there, and I don't think that they buried them so much. Maybe they did, I don't know. I think they died and they maybe propped them against a tree and they kept walking. And they mourned them a little bit, but they had stuff to do because they were nomadic and they had to get food and had to provide and gather berries and things. So I'm not so sure that constitutes a sacred land either, because even though someone died there, which is tragic, that's the nature of what they were doing. I can't imagine that in their treks back, they go back and say, oh, Uncle Fred died here last, 500 years ago or 10 years ago. It's like, oh, a tree. The bones would have been eaten by the animals and scattered across the country everywhere. And that's what happened, I believe. I think the first people that came to every country, wherever it is in every part of the world, raped and pillaged it. They destroyed all of the mammals. They killed all the big, slow food animals for food, and they decimated hundreds of cultures and wiped out heaps of species for food and survival. Australian Aboriginal claim fantastic things about backburning and for the environment. No, I don't know. I think they backburned so that they could herd animals to get them so they could eat them and kill them. I don't think there was an eco-friendly Aboriginal back in the day. Like, maybe I'm wrong, and no disrespect to them if that's what they did. Just not seeing that to be true. As they evolved, or just no disrespect again here, in 30,000 years they didn't evolve. They just nomadically moved around. There was no need for them to do anything. They were just eating and hunting and doing stuff. They changed the way they did. They fought inside. They had wars and tribal wars. There was a story of in Denmark, in Western Australia, and of a genocide of one Aboriginal tribe totally destroying another Aboriginal tribe, and I mean literally destroying them all. How true it is or not, this came from an Aboriginal who told me the story that his tribe totally annihilated every single one of this other tribe, like down to children, everything. There was no existence of the tribe anymore. That was a genocide committed from one Aboriginal to another. So for them to talk about white genocide now is like hypocrisy. It's absolutely crap, because every culture does it, like every culture does. Moving back to the voice and the arguments they're talking about, all of the things that they're saying about, I don't know, it's divisive. It's separating us from them. It's bringing a person into a place in Parliament who has not been voted by everybody in the area, It's going to be an appointed person by a body of people to be the representative of the voice in Parliament. Now, there might be 15 of them or 30 of them. Look, we just don't know how many of these people are going to be appointed officials into the voice to potentially veto any bill that the Parliament's going to go through and make. And if they don't like it, no, we don't like that. It's only our voice, but we're the First Nations people and our voice matters and we want that. And they're going to say, well, let's do this. And they say, no, we won't have that. That can only happen if you give this to this people and this much money. And they're even going to talk about reparations, and which is a whole other argument which I don't want to get into. If they're so anti this society and so anti, I'm going into it. How do you like that? I just right in there. If they're so anti this society and they're so anti what's happened in colonialisation, then all good to you. You know, please go back to the nomadic life. Wear your loincloths. Paint your face. Hunt down kangaroos because there's a shitload of them. Eat all the food from the land. Just don't use the things that you are so anti. Like colonialism brought innovation to this country. When people came here, and to every country that's ever criticising colonialism right now, they wouldn't have the stuff they've got now. And you could say that's good or bad. That's argument for another day. But they're using this stuff now, and they can't argue that it's good or it's bad if they're on their cell phone when they're arguing it, or that they're driving their Mercedes or their Hyundai. It doesn't matter what they're driving. It's all from colonialism. It's all the benefits that they're getting. If they don't like it, then just go back to the nomadic life, and everyone will respect that culture and your choice to do that, as I have a choice to admire this one nation of Australia. The one nation of Australia has Aboriginal people, it has English people, it has Greeks, Italians, Hispanics, it has Hindus and Buddhists and Muslims and Christians and everybody. This is the nation of Australia. It is multicultural. It isn't multicultural and Indigenous people. It isn't that. It is all one freaking culture. And if we have this voice, is there not going to be a voice for the Muslims and a voice for the Christians and a voice for the Italians and the Greeks and the whatevers? A lot of these people that are fighting this voice are so more white than they are Indigenous that it's embarrassing. Some of these people look like me. Hang on, I can't do it. I should show a picture of my father. And they've got like this much, and that's fine. Respect that. But what about the rest of that? Then that they've turned away from. Why don't they go, shit, I've got part Viking. Like, I'd really like to understand the Viking culture. And I think because I've got part Viking, and I think, maybe I do. Yeah, maybe I can't do it this way. Maybe I've got part Viking. Maybe I'm a hippie feral mungbean. Like, I don't know. But I am Australian, and that's all this is. This referendum is so diversive. It's the people that are doing it. Most of the people that I see on the yes side of this referendum are virtual signaling white entitled people who feel for some whatever reason that everything they've got we've raped and stolen from the Aboriginal people, and there's no treaty. Like, what the hell does that mean? And the people on the no side, they're pretty calm, they're relaxed, and they say, look at other things and investigate this. And I got some tweet the other day saying there was a lady who had a big yes sign on her wall, on the front yard, and someone wrote a letter saying, maybe you should look at everything else before you go this and have a look at these links. And the crap that was coming through in the feed underneath that was bloody white people, and what do they think about clicking those links on that piece of paper and it didn't work? I'm going, oh man, these people are stupid. And I haven't yet seen really where anyone on the no side, and maybe they're there, and I just haven't seen it because I look for it, where they're really telling the people on the yes side that they're stupid. They might be saying they need to investigate. They may be a little ignorant. And maybe I'm saying they're stupid because I think they're virtual signaling entitled white people. I didn't say they were stupid, though. I just think they're virtual signaling entitled white people. They could be super intelligent. In fact, I know someone who's a school teacher and a carer of young people and says that they had lots of Aboriginal friends whose super intelligent, but man, virtual signaling white person right there. And I'm going, okay, let's look at this. Let's not have the voice referendum. Let's spend the money on education. Let's spend the money on bringing everybody together, not separating people into different cultures and different tribes. So that's my view, and that's going to be it. Like, I think we need to be one. That's it. You know, let's go non-political so much, but we are one nation, and I think we need to bring that one nation into the fore now and let go of the separation. If we allow the voice to go through, we are setting the world into a whole messy area. It's going to set up, if it allows in our testing ground here in Australia to be real, and it goes through and there's separation or white apartheid or whatever the words are out there using, then it's going to be all the cultures of Australia and the Indigenous separated. Then it'll happen in America. It'll happen through Europe. It'll happen in Africa. It'll happen everywhere where there's a predominantly white culture, and they were people pushed aside in the indigenous cultures of those other places without embracing them into the one. There's going to be separation everywhere. And I think that's wrong. I think we are one nation, and let's stay one nation. Vote yes, 100%. And as far as I'm aware, everything has to be yes. Don't vote yes for one and no for another, because that means it's yes by default. It's no, 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 however many questions there are. Read them clearly, understand it, and say no. Anyway, moving on. Right, it's over, except for my last bit, my rules. Right, these are what would have been my martial art rules. So I want to put these out there so you can have a little look at them. I believe that we need to give, number one, focus. We need to give full commitment to a conversation or a task. If I'm having this conversation with you, I'm fully committed to it. I won't get engaged with noise on the outside. You have my attention. I'm going to give you my eye contact. I'm going to listen. I'm going to repeat back to you some things what you say. I'm going to, next time I talk to you, I'm going to remember the conversation. I'm going to bring it back up. Something you said, so that was really cool what you said last week. Really value that and mean it. So I'm fully committed. That's my focus to you. It's my focus to a task I'm applying myself to, regardless of how long it takes and what's involved in that task. So if I'm fully focused on a task, doesn't mean the task is going to be done in 10 minutes. It might take 2 hours, but I'm focused on the intent of getting that task done. And if I stop for the day, I've stopped. The task is over. I focus on the next phase of my day. So focus is critical. Number one, focus. Number two is integrity. And to me, that means, and this is my interpretation of it, please don't put anything in the description saying that's not what integrity means, because, don't care. Don't give a rat's ass. For me, integrity means to do the right thing, even when people aren't looking. And I think there's some people out there who will only do the right thing when people are watching them so they can get a pat on the back or an applaud or whatever it might be. For me, is I'm walking into the house and I see something that shouldn't be there, I'll pick it up and I'll move it. I don't wait for it, and then I don't go, hey, babe, did you see I moved that? It's like, fuck off. Don't be a loser. You just do it. Right? And I'm guilty of it because I do the wrong thing sometimes, but, I know it, like my 80-20 rule. I generally not speed. And if I do speed, if I get caught, I won't go, fucking cops for pulling me over for speeding. I go, yep, I'll wear that. I was speeding. I shouldn't have done it. That's integrity. Own it and do the right thing. Don't be pissed off and don't annoy anyone else from doing it. The third one. So I've got focus and integrity. Third one's self-control. And some people call it discipline, self-discipline. But, to me, discipline is a negative word. It means you've got to beat yourself up to do it. So discipline is a punishment thing. It's not. I know the argument is said otherwise, but for me, self-control. And that's to avoid doing the things that annoy another person or that's detrimental to yourself. So, and that's self-control. I don't know. I try. Some people tell me when I have a discussion, I use tone a lot, and I tone in a conversation. And I go, okay, I don't mean to do that to offend you, and I don't mean to do it to make myself out to be more superior, or I don't do it to make it hurtful to me. I do it because I'm passionate and I get excited. My tone lifts and I get a little loud and I sit on the edge of the chair and I'd like to think that the people will understand that and know that I'm not doing it to be bad, but I do try and control it a little bit because I don't want to hurt the person. So I try and maintain some self-control in doing that. I exercise, try and do some stretching every day. And I use the word try because it's not always possible. And when I do that, I don't beat myself up. So when I start to feel that I'm beating myself up for doing it, I bring self-control and go, no, beating myself up is detrimental to me. I need to exercise, so I will make more of an effort to do that. And I will focus more on that for the intent of doing that. So it's not about beating myself up when I do something wrong. It's maintaining that because beating myself up is detrimental to me. So back to self-control, to avoid doing things that you know annoy others and you know you do it because you see they're pissed off, or avoid doing things that's detrimental to yourself. That's number 3, self-control. Right, number 4, this one. Courtesy. Right? It's so lost. And I watched an American TV show, and I think it's coming from the American TV shows. Walks into a bar and says, give me a scotch. And if I was a bartender, I'd go, fuck off. Right? Why would I give you a scotch? Where's your please? And then he gives the scotch and there's no thank you. It's like, it's so rude. And I don't mean that of Americans, please. I don't mean that all Americans are like that. It's just what we get bombarded by the American television shows and these power people, the people of authority. They just walk in, demand, and when they get, there's no gratitude, there's no courtesy. I don't believe it's everybody. Please don't write there, oh, not all Americans and not all British are like that. It's just what I've observed from the television. And even that, there is a few people that are. So courtesy is be grateful and always use your manners. And please and thank yous, they go so far. And to teach your children to do it. If someone says to me, my boys and my daughter would say to me, can I have a drink of water? I go, sure. And I walk in with my glass of water and they go, where's mine? I go, well, you asked me a question. Can I have a drink of water? I said, yes, you can. I answered your question. I said, how do you change that from a question to a request? They go, oh, God, can I please have a drink of water? I go, sure, it'd be my pleasure. And then I give them the drink of water. I hand it to them. And if they don't say thank you, I don't release the glass. And they're looking at me with this questioning look. I go, eyes up. They go, thank you. I go, there you are, my pleasure. It's not hard to do. Teach your children manners. And people out there, be respectful, be courteous, have your manners. Last one, then I'm done. Number 5, that's that one. Number 5, respect. And this will mean if you do this, if you can work on number 5 first, that's the order why it's 1 through to 5. You treat people, all people that you encounter, and treat them the way you want them to treat you. Everybody, without exception. You meet someone on the street you've never met, you treat them the way you want them to treat you. If you don't look at them, don't expect them to look at you. If you don't greet them with courtesy, don't expect them to talk to you and greet you with courtesy. It's your job to step forward and do that. And the degrees of respect depend on the intensity of the conversation with the person. And remembering respect is given across the board in my world to every single person. The mindset that says you have to earn respect, no. I think you just give deeper levels of respect depending on what status that person has to you in your world. So respect is number 5. If you have respect, you will give a person focus. If you have respect, you will have integrity. If you have respect, you will have self-control. You won't do what annoys somebody, and you will respect yourself enough not to do anything that's detrimental to you. If you have respect for someone, you'll be grateful for what they do, and you'll be courteous, and you'll say pleases and thank yous. It's not hard. Respect is number 5, but it is the hardest to do. So start off with focus, move on to integrity, move to self-control, and move to courtesy. Move these things around in the order that suits you. Find 5 things in your world that's going to step you to the final goal, and that's respect. And if we have that, there'd be no frickin' voice referendum. There'd be none of the hassles that are going around in the world. There'll be no youth crime. There'll be none of the addictions in the world that are out there. You can use recreational drugs. Don't give a shit. Don't get addicted to them. Have alcohol, go for it. Don't become an alcoholic, because if you had respect for yourself, you wouldn't do it. So my preach is over. I'm done. However, I will leave with this. Treos, somewhere in there, which is not on this one, but normally it's down there. Take responsibility and own your shit. Treos, hashtag it everywhere. You need to take responsibility and own your stuff or your shit, and that's where these basic rules will come in. If you do that, everything rocks and everything rules. Enjoy your journey. It's really important that you do that. If you enjoy your journey, it's happy and your journey is yours. Have a great weekend. Be grateful. Focus, integrity, self-control, courtesy, and respect. Enjoy.